CEO's son-in-law Marcus fired me with a text message after 23 years. What he didn't know was that I had 1,247 photos, 73 hours of recordings, and 394 emails proving he'd been building death traps and calling them schools. "Clean out your desk, old man. Your expensive perfectionist days are over," he said, grinning while I read the termination text. This trust fund kid in a $3,000 suit thought he was firing a troublesome foreman. He was actually releasing someone who'd spent 18 months documenting every crime he'd committed. I'm Raymond Booker, 48 years old. Built half the schools in Fort Worth over 23 years. 0 injuries. 0 failed inspections. And I'd been secretly photographing Marcus using substandard concrete on elementary schools, bribing building inspectors, and falsifying safety certificates. The elementary school project alone? He'd switched to concrete 30% weaker than required to save $52,000. 800 children would attend that school. The children's hospital where my wife was getting cancer treatment? Foundation that could collapse in a moderate earthquake. But Marcus made one fatal mistake. He forgot that I wasn't just any foreman. I was the guy who documented everything. My wife Patricia was battling stage 3 breast cancer. Her treatments cost $23,000 per month. Our insurance ran through Nordahl Construction. My daughter Isabella needed $31,000 per year for UT Austin Engineering School. Marcus thought he was just cutting an expensive employee. He had no idea he'd declared war on someone who knew where everybody was buried. I'd seen this coming for 18 months. Marcus had been methodically replacing experienced foremen with younger, cheaper supervisors who didn't ask inconvenient questions about material specifications. I was the last holdout, the last guy who remembered when Nordahl actually built things to last 50 years. But I'd been preparing. Every questionable decision, every cost-cutting measure, every safety shortcut. I'd documented it all. Not because I planned revenge, because I planned to protect myself from the lawsuits that were inevitably coming. Marcus hadn't been randomly cutting costs. For the past 22 months, he'd been systematically using substandard materials while charging clients for premium specifications. The profit margins were massive. The elementary school project I'd been overseeing, they'd switched to concrete with compressive strength 30% weaker than specifications. The savings? $52,000. The risk? Potential foundation failure within 5 years. 800 children would attend that school. The medical center parking structure? Cheap rebar that would corrode in 5 years instead of 50. Another $43,000 saved. The structure served 12,000 patients monthly, including the pediatric oncology ward where kids like Isabella's friend Katie received treatments. The senior living facility? Foundation work using concrete mix designed for sidewalks instead of load-bearing structures. It would develop stress fractures within 3 years. Elderly residents trusting their lives to shortcuts Marcus made to fund his new BMW, but it went deeper. Marcus had been bribing building inspectors across 3 counties. I had photos of him handing envelopes to city officials. I had recordings of him explaining to concrete suppliers how to falsify strength certifications. I had video of him instructing crews to use foundation depths 18 inches shallower than building codes required. Most damning? I had crystal-clear video of him telling our crew to ignore seismic stability requirements for the new Children's Hospital Foundation. "Nobody's going to test it for earthquake resistance," he'd laughed. "And if there's ever a big earthquake in Texas, we'll all have bigger problems." That children's hospital, where Isabella's friend Katie received leukemia treatments, where Patricia would get her next chemotherapy, where sick kids trusted that the building would protect them. Marcus wasn't just cutting corners. He was building death traps and slapping Nordahl Construction Building Tomorrow Today signs on them. I'd documented everything, and I mean everything. It started 18 months ago, on March 15th, when I first noticed Marcus switching our concrete supplier from Lone Star Materials, a company we'd used for 12 years, to Discount Ready Mix, a fly-by-night operation that underbid everyone by 40%. That should have been the first red flag. In construction, you get what you pay for, and 40% savings meant 40% less quality. I started taking photos that same day. Not obvious ones. I wasn't stupid. I used my phone to capture delivery manifests while pretending to check emails. Snapped pictures of concrete trucks with their identification numbers and timestamps. Photographed the actual concrete being poured, noting its consistency, color, and setting time. Real concrete has a specific look when it's properly mixed. This stuff looked like gray soup. Within 2 weeks, I had 47 photos and a growing sense that something was very wrong. The emails started accumulating in May. Marcus wasn't careful about digital security. Trust fund kids never are. He'd CC me on communications with suppliers, thinking I was just another loyal employee who wouldn't question orders from above. But I read every word. I saved every attachment. I forwarded copies to a personal email account Marcus didn't know about. Email from May 8th. Marcus, regarding the Riverside Project concrete specs, we can substitute grade 30 for grade 50 and save approximately $43,000. Client won't know the difference unless they specifically test, which they won't. Tommy, discount ready mix. Marcus's response, same day. Perfect. Make the switch. And Tommy, let's discuss how we handle the paperwork to show grade 50 delivery. Standard practice, right? That email alone was evidence of fraud, but it was just the beginning. By June, I'd developed a system. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., I'd arrive at job sites 30 minutes before the crews. I'd photograph material deliveries, document serial numbers, record timestamps. I bought a small digital voice recorder, the kind journalists use, and kept it in my shirt pocket during safety meetings and client conferences. The voice recordings were gold mines. June 23rd safety meeting, Northside Elementary Project. Look, guys, Marcus's voice clear as day. The foundation depth on the blueprint says 4 feet, but we can get away with 3.5 feet. Soil conditions are good here. Nobody's going to dig it up to check. We save $31,000 in excavation costs, and the client gets their school built faster. Win-win. My crew supervisor, Kevin Martinez, had asked the obvious question. What if there's settling? What if the foundation shifts? Marcus's laugh was recorded in perfect clarity. Kevin, that's why God invented lawyers and insurance companies. By the time any settling shows up, if it shows up, this will be someone else's problem. We'll be building condos in Dallas. That recording made my blood run cold. This wasn't just cutting corners. This was willful endangerment of children with an exit strategy already planned. July brought the inspector bribery evidence. I'd started following Marcus during lunch breaks, staying far enough back to avoid detection but close enough to photograph his meetings. The first payoff I witnessed was at Pappadeaux Seafood Kitchen on July 12th. Marcus handed a white envelope to Brad Williams, the city building inspector for our district. I shot 17 photos from my truck in the parking lot, using the zoom function to capture the exchange in perfect detail. The envelope was thick, professional thickness. I estimated between $5,000 and $8,000 based on the size. 2 days later, Brad Williams signed off on the Nordahl Elementary Foundation inspection without ever visiting the site. I knew this because I was there all day. No inspector showed up. But somehow the inspection passed with flying colors. That's when I realized the scope of what I was documenting. This wasn't just material fraud. This was systematic corruption involving multiple city officials. I upgraded my documentation methods, bought a telephoto lens for my camera, purchased a second voice recorder as backup, started using encrypted cloud storage to back up everything in real time. I wasn't just collecting evidence anymore. I was building a legal case that could bring down multiple people. August was when I discovered the falsified concrete strength certificates. Marcus had gotten sloppy, leaving his laptop open in the construction trailer while he took a phone call outside. I had maybe 3 minutes. I plugged in a USB drive and copied his entire documents folder. 847 files containing correspondence with suppliers, inspection reports, financial spreadsheets, and most damning of all, a folder labeled Certificate Templates. Inside that folder were blank concrete strength certifications from 3 different testing labs, pre-signed documents where Marcus could fill in whatever numbers he wanted. The real certificates would show concrete strength at 2,500 psi. Marcus's forgeries claimed 4,000 psi. The difference between a foundation that might last 10 years and one that would last 50. I printed everything, made multiple copies, stored them in 3 different locations: my home office, a safety deposit box, and my brother's house in Oklahoma. If Marcus somehow discovered what I was doing, he'd never find all the evidence. September brought the children's hospital incident that made this personal. Patricia had been getting her chemotherapy treatments there for 6 months. The building was only 2 years old, part of the cancer center expansion that Nordahl Construction had completed ahead of schedule and under budget. Achievements Marcus bragged about constantly. During a routine follow-up appointment with Patricia's oncologist, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, I mentioned that we'd built the foundation for the cancer center. She made an offhand comment that stuck with me. "You know, we've had some concerning structural issues, cracks in the basement walls, water seepage during heavy rains. The maintenance crew is constantly patching things up." Structural issues. In a building my company had constructed, where my wife was fighting for her life. That weekend I used my contractor access to inspect the cancer center basement after hours. What I found made me physically sick. Stress fractures running along load-bearing walls, water damage indicating foundation settling, expansion joints that were already failing after just 2 years. I took 127 photographs that night, measured crack lengths with a ruler, documented water stains with timestamps. This building was slowly failing, and sick people, including my wife, were trusting their lives to its structural integrity. The next Monday, I pulled the original blueprints for the Cancer Center project. Marcus had specified grade 50 concrete for the foundation, rated for 4,000 psi compressive strength. I cross-referenced with my copies of his supplier communications. The actual concrete delivered was grade 30, rated for 2,500 psi. The math was simple and terrifying. The foundation was carrying 60% more load than it was designed to handle. Eventually, it would fail catastrophically. By October, I had what prosecutors would later call the most comprehensive documentation of construction fraud in Texas history. 1,247 photographs, 73 hours of audio recordings, 394 emails and text messages, financial records proving $387,000 in fraudulent savings, concrete strength certificates proving systematic falsification. But collecting evidence was only half the battle. The other half was keeping it secret while maintaining my sanity. Every morning, I woke up knowing that I was documenting crimes that could kill hundreds of people. Every afternoon, I came home to Patricia and Isabella, pretending everything was normal while carrying proof of massive corruption in my laptop bag. Every night, I lay awake wondering if I was doing the right thing or if I was just paranoid. The psychological toll was enormous. I started having stress-related headaches, lost 15 pounds because I couldn't eat properly. Patricia noticed, but I told her it was work pressure. How do you explain to your cancer-fighting wife that you're secretly investigating your own company for building death traps? Isabella noticed too. Dad, you've been really quiet lately. Is everything okay with work? What could I say? That her father was documenting evidence that could send multiple people to federal prison? That the company that paid for her college fund was built on systematic fraud? That every day I didn't report what I knew, more buildings were being compromised? So I lied. Just busy season, sweetheart. Lots of projects finishing up before winter. The worst part was watching Marcus operate day after day, knowing what he was really doing. He'd make jokes about efficient construction practices and maximizing shareholder value. He'd brag to clients about coming in under budget and ahead of schedule. He'd shake hands with parents at school board meetings, promising their children the safest possible learning environment. All while I had evidence that he was systematically compromising every project we touched. November was when I started preparing for the inevitable confrontation. I created 3 identical USB drives containing everything I'd gathered, made hard copy backups of the most critical documents, wrote detailed summaries of each major violation with dates, locations, and potential consequences. The breaking point came on December 3rd, when Marcus announced the elementary school project. 800 children. Foundation work scheduled to begin January 15th, using the same substandard concrete, following the same fraudulent specifications. That night, I made copies of everything one final time, organized the evidence chronologically, prepared written summaries for prosecutors, building inspectors, and journalists. I was ready for war. Marcus just didn't know it yet. That night, I spread everything across our kitchen table. 4 years of documentation, 847 photographs of violations, email chains spanning 18 months, audio recordings totaling 23 hours that could send people to federal prison. Isabella walked in around 9:30 p.m. and stopped dead. "Dad, what's all this?" "Evidence," I said, holding up a photo of Marcus handing an envelope to an inspector. "Evidence that Marcus and his father-in-law have been building death traps and calling them schools." Patricia emerged from the living room. Despite being weak from chemo, her accounting background made her understand immediately. She studied a concrete specification sheet, comparing original requirements to actual materials used. "Raymond," she said quietly, "this isn't just about your job anymore. This is about every child who'll walk those hallways, every patient who'll depend on that hospital foundation." She was right. This was bigger than my career, bigger than revenge. This was about preventing a tragedy that could kill hundreds. "What are you going to do?" Isabella asked. I looked at my daughter. Brilliant, passionate, planning to study civil engineering because she wanted to build things that mattered, because her father had taught her that construction was about more than profit margins. "I'm going to burn their whole criminal empire to the ground," I said, "and I'm going to do it legally." I made my first call to Beverly Walsh, Chief Building Inspector for Fort Worth. We'd worked together for 15 years. She knew my reputation. "Beverly, I need to file a formal structural deviation report. Multiple buildings, multiple violations, and I have proof of everything." Her voice got serious. "Raymond, you know what filing that report means? Shutting down projects, investigations. Marcus and his people will come after you with everything they have. They already fired me. What else can they do? Destroy your reputation. Blacklist you from every construction company in Texas. Make sure you never work again." I thought about Patricia's medical bills, about Isabella's college dreams, about the safe future I was about to torch. Then I thought about that children's hospital. Schedule the meeting. But before filing anything official, I made 3 more calls that would change everything. First, David Roy, investigative reporter for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. "David, remember our conversation about systemic construction problems? I've got the story of the decade. Multiple buildings, systematic fraud, and I have documentation of everything." Second, James Morrison from Morrison, Blake & Associates, the construction defect law firm. "Mr. Morrison, clear your calendar. I've got documentation of fraud that could keep your firm busy for 5 years. Third, Kevin Martinez, my former crew supervisor who'd been laid off for asking too many questions. "Kevin, how would you like to get even with Marcus while doing the right thing?" Monday morning at 8 a.m., I walked into Beverly's office with 2 bankers' boxes of evidence. Behind me came David Roy with recording equipment, James Morrison with legal papers, and Kevin with his own documentation. "Beverly," I said, "we need to talk about systematic building code violations affecting 43 structures across Fort Worth, right now." The inspection blitz began that afternoon. Building inspectors swarmed 6 active Nordall construction sites simultaneously. Marcus's phone started ringing at 1:17 p.m. and didn't stop. By 3:15 p.m., David Roy published the first article online. Exclusive: whistleblower claims systematic safety violations at major construction firm. High-resolution photos of substandard materials, email excerpts discussing creative cost-cutting, and expert analysis of potential consequences. By 4:22 p.m., the Texas Attorney General announced a criminal investigation into allegations of construction fraud, bribery, and systematic endangerment of public safety. By 5:45 p.m., panicked parents were arriving at 3 Nordall-built schools, demanding immediate safety inspections and threatening to pull their children until buildings were certified safe. Marcus scheduled a press conference for Tuesday morning, planning to paint me as a disgruntled former employee making false accusations. He had no idea what was coming. Tuesday morning at 9:47 a.m., 13 minutes before Marcus's press conference, FBI agents raided Nordall Construction's headquarters with warrants for financial records, communication logs, and material specifications. They also raided Marcus's residence, his father-in-law's mansion, and 3 concrete supplier offices. The raid was broadcast live. Viewers watched federal agents carrying boxes of evidence while Marcus stammered through talking points about industry-standard practices. But the knockout punch came Tuesday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. That's when David Roy published the audio recordings. Marcus's voice, crystal clear, telling concrete suppliers to get creative with strength certifications because nobody actually tests every batch. Marcus explaining to inspectors that flexibility in code interpretation would be mutually beneficial and financially rewarding. Marcus joking about how old-school foremen like Booker didn't understand that construction is about maximizing margins, not building monuments. The recordings went viral within hours. Local radio stations played clips every 15 minutes. Social media exploded with outrage. The hashtag #Nordall scandal trended nationally for 6 days. By Wednesday, the investigation had expanded to include federal prosecutors. This wasn't just about building codes anymore. This was wire fraud, conspiracy, bribery, and racketeering. The dominoes fell faster than Marcus could catch them. Wednesday afternoon, Fort Worth City Council held an emergency session reviewing all Nordall permits from the past 5 years. Result? 37 projects shut down pending comprehensive safety inspections. Cost to the city: $2.7 million in emergency engineering assessments. Thursday morning, 3 major insurance companies, Liberty Mutual, Travelers, and AIG, canceled all Nordall policies and launched investigations into structural defect claims. Combined exposure: $47.3 million. Thursday afternoon, the school district unanimously terminated Nordall's $12.8 million elementary school contract and hired independent engineers to assess all 7 Nordall-built schools. The motion passed 7-0, with one member stating, "We cannot gamble with our children's lives." Friday morning, First National Bank called in Nordall's outstanding loans. Immediate payment required on $12.3 million in construction financing, plus penalties. The bank concluded that Nordall's legal liabilities made default inevitable and imminent. But Marcus still thought he could salvage something. That's when he made his biggest mistake. Friday evening at 7:23 p.m., my phone rang. Marcus's name appeared. The conversation lasted 12 minutes and 37 seconds. I recorded every word. "Booker, you son of a bitch!" he started, voice shaking with rage. "You've destroyed everything my family spent 30 years building." "Your family built death traps," I replied calmly. "I just documented the evidence. We can work this out. I'll reinstate you immediately. Full back pay. Promotion to regional manager with 20% salary increase. We'll implement new quality procedures." "It's too late for that, Marcus. Look, nobody actually got hurt. These are just technical violations of bureaucratic regulations. Paperwork discrepancies. We can make this go away." And there it was. The admission prosecutors had been waiting for. "So you admit there were violations?" I admit we found innovative ways to work efficiently within the system while maintaining acceptable safety margins. That's smart business, not criminal behavior. Marcus, do you understand how many people could have died if that Children's Hospital Foundation failed during even a moderate earthquake? That's completely theoretical. Engineering safety margins are built into everything. Nobody was actually at risk. Tell that to the structural engineers who reviewed your work. Tell that to the families of kids receiving cancer treatment in that building right now. Long pause, heavy breathing. Then, Booker, listen carefully. I'll pay you personally. $200,000 cash. Offshore account, completely untraceable. Just convince the prosecutors you were mistaken about some documentation. Bribery. Attempted obstruction of justice. All captured in perfect digital clarity. Marcus, the only mistake I made was not reporting your crimes sooner. This isn't over, Booker. I have resources you can't imagine. Connections, lawyers. I will bury you. Good luck with that from federal prison. The recording became Exhibit A in the federal case. The trial began 6 months later and lasted 6 weeks. Marcus sat in expensive suits while prosecutors used my evidence to destroy him. Day 1. Financial evidence. Prosecutor Sarah Chen showed how Marcus had pocketed $387,000 over 4 years using substandard materials while charging for premium specifications. The money funded his BMW, his wife's jewelry, and European vacations. Day 8. The recordings. Marcus's voice filled the courtroom as prosecutors played hours of him discussing bribing inspectors and falsifying documents. The jury watched him squirm as his own words condemned him. Day 12. Victim impact statements. Parents from affected schools describing their terror. Patients from the medical center explaining their fear. Senior living facility residents testifying about their vulnerability. Day 18. My testimony. 8 hours on the witness stand, walking the jury through 4 years of documentation, photos of substandard materials delivered to elementary schools, explanations of how each shortcut put lives at risk. Marcus's defense lawyer tried painting me as a disgruntled employee seeking revenge. That strategy collapsed when the prosecutor played the recording of Marcus offering me $200,000 to lie to investigators. Day 25. Closing arguments. The prosecutor called it the largest construction fraud conspiracy in Texas history, endangering thousands, including children, cancer patients, and elderly residents. The jury deliberated for 47 minutes. Guilty on all federal charges: wire fraud, 18 counts, conspiracy, bribery, 12 counts, obstruction of justice, and endangering public safety. Marcus's father-in-law, CEO Thomas Nordahl, was convicted on parallel charges. His 30 years of experience made his culpability worse in the jury's eyes. Sentencing day. Marcus Nordahl got 4 years and 8 months in federal prison, $890,000 in criminal restitution, $2.3 million in civil penalties, lifetime construction industry ban, and 5 years supervised probation. Thomas Nordahl, 6 years and 4 months, $1.4 million restitution, $3.7 million penalties, forfeiture of all licenses, and lifetime ban from any public safety business. 28 property owners filed lawsuits seeking damages for structural defects and diminished values. Total exposure, $15.7 million. Insurance companies joined the litigation, seeking reimbursement for fraudulent claims and repair coverage. Additional exposure, $32.4 million. Fort Worth filed suit to recover inspection costs and emergency assessments. Recovery sought $8.7 million in taxpayer funds. Nordahl Construction's assets were liquidated to pay settlements. The company that had dominated Fort Worth construction for 30 years vanished in 18 months. But here's the beautiful part Marcus never saw coming. The school district that he'd tried to shortchange hired me as senior construction manager for the elementary school rebuild. They doubled my salary to $147,000 annually and gave me 2% equity in the $14.2 million project. Full medical benefits covered Patricia's cancer treatments without copays. The Children's Hospital invited me to oversee complete foundation remediation. They created a new position, Director of Construction Safety and Quality Assurance. My job was ensuring every aspect met the highest possible safety standards. 6 other major construction firms reached out with job offers within 2 weeks of Marcus's conviction. My reputation for uncompromising safety standards had become a selling point. Booker Certified became industry shorthand for construction that would last forever. But the sweetest revenge was starting my own firm, Booker Safety Solutions. My business model was simple: help companies identify and fix corners other contractors had cut before catastrophic failures occurred, prevent lawsuits before they happened, build reputations instead of destroying them. First-year revenue, $2.8 million. All from companies desperate to avoid becoming the next Nordahl Construction. Second year, $4.1 million. Word of mouth brought projects from Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. Third year, $6.3 million. We'd expanded to employ 23 safety inspectors and forensic engineers. Patricia's cancer went into complete remission 11 months after Marcus's conviction. Her oncologist said reduced stress might have helped. Funny how doing the right thing can be the best medicine. Isabella graduated valedictorian with a perfect 4.0 GPA. She received a full scholarship to UT Austin for civil engineering, plus a guaranteed summer internship with Booker Safety Solutions. She wants to build things the right way, like her father taught her. "Dad," she said before leaving for college, "my construction law professor already knows about our case. You're going to be required reading next semester." "What chapter?" "Whistleblower Protection and Industry Reform. She said you fundamentally changed how construction fraud investigations work in Texas. You created the template other safety professionals follow when they discover violations." 9 months after I was fired via text, I stood on the properly poured foundation of Maple Street Elementary, premium concrete rated for twice the required load capacity. Perfect specifications that exceeded every safety standard. Everything those 800 children deserved. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You destroyed my life over some concrete specifications and paperwork violations." I recognized Marcus's tone even from federal prison. I texted back, "I saved children's lives. Your life destroyed itself through criminal greed." He never replied, but 3 weeks later I received a letter from his attorney requesting a meeting to discuss potential reconciliation. I threw it in the trash without reading past the first paragraph. The school opened in September with a ribbon-cutting ceremony attended by the mayor, superintendent, and 847 students. Every morning when I drive past, I think about that termination text that started this journey. Principal Doctor Maria Santos invited me to speak at the opening ceremony. Standing at the podium, I looked out at parents, teachers, and children who had no idea how close they'd come to disaster. "This building will protect your children for generations," I said. "Not because we followed minimum standards, but because we exceeded them at every opportunity. Not because it was profitable, but because it was right. Because your children deserve nothing less than our absolute best." The applause lasted 3 minutes and 47 seconds. But the real reward was knowing every child in that building was completely safe. Today, Booker Safety Solutions employs 47 professionals across Texas and 3 neighboring states. We've prevented an estimated $180 million in construction defect lawsuits by identifying problems before they became disasters. Our motto? Building right the first time, every time. Business continues booming 5 years later. Turns out there are many Marcus Nordahl types cutting corners and endangering lives, and even more companies who'd rather hire the consultant who prevents catastrophic failures than deal with the attorneys who prosecute them afterward. Last month, Isabella called from UT Austin, where she's now a senior. Her capstone project was a comprehensive case study on construction ethics, focusing on our case against Nordahl Construction. "Dad, my professor says you created the gold standard for how construction safety professionals should document and report systematic violations. you're literally changing how the entire industry polices itself. The Texas legislature passed sweeping new construction oversight laws based on our case. The Nordahl Prevention Act requires independent safety inspections on all public construction projects over $5 million. It mandates contractors maintain comprehensive digital documentation of all material specifications and safety decisions. Most importantly, it provides legal protection and financial compensation for construction workers who report safety violations. No foreman should ever choose between feeding his family and protecting children's lives. No construction worker should face retaliation for refusing to compromise public safety. Marcus tried to appeal his conviction twice. Both appeals were denied by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. He served the full 4 years and 8 months. Thomas Nordahl died of a heart attack in federal prison 18 months into his sentence. The stress of losing everything he'd built over 3 decades, combined with the shame of his conviction, finally proved too much. I felt no satisfaction in his death, but I did feel justice knowing he could never endanger innocent people again. 5 years after the trial, I was invited to deliver the keynote address at the National Construction Safety Conference in Las Vegas. 3,000 construction professionals gathered to hear me speak about "When doing right costs everything and gives you more, a blueprint for ethical construction." Standing before that massive audience, I told the complete story of Marcus Nordahl, the systematic fraud, and the choice between profit and principle that every construction professional eventually faces. "Some of you might think I was lucky," I concluded, looking out at faces representing every aspect of the construction industry. "That everything worked out perfectly in the end. That good guys always win, and criminals always get caught." But here's the truth. I wasn't fighting for a happy ending or personal revenge. I was fighting to prevent a tragedy that could have killed hundreds of innocent people. Everything else, the new career, the successful business, the industry recognition, that was just what happened when I chose to do right instead of staying quiet and collecting my paycheck. The question isn't whether you'll face that choice in your career. In this industry, dealing with safety and public trust, you absolutely will. The question is what you'll do when that moment comes. When someone asks you to cut corners that could cost lives. When profit margins matter more than building codes. When your job security conflicts with your professional integrity. Choose integrity. Choose safety. Choose the people who will depend on what you build. And document everything, because the truth is your most powerful weapon against corruption. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes and 12 seconds. But more importantly, 6 construction professionals approached me afterward to report safety violations at their own companies. The cycle of accountability continues. But this story doesn't end with my speech in Las Vegas, because corruption and greed never truly disappear. They just find new forms and new faces. Last week, I received a phone call that brought everything full circle. Kevin Martinez, my old crew supervisor who'd helped expose Marcus's crimes, was now running construction projects in Austin for a major infrastructure firm. His voice was tense when he called me at 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning. "Ray, you're not going to believe this. I just fired a project manager for trying to substitute substandard concrete on a middle school foundation. The savings would have been $47,000. The risk was catastrophic failure within 4 years." "Good for you, Kevin. You learned the lessons well." "That's not why I'm calling. Ray, the project manager I just fired, his name is Marcus Nordahl Jr. Marcus's son, 24 years old, fresh out of Texas AANDM with a construction management degree. Apparently trying to rebuild the family name and fortune by cutting the exact same corners his father had." "Did you document everything?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Every email about cost-cutting suggestions. Every specification change he proposed. Every safety shortcut he recommended. I learned from the best teacher in the business. Some people never learn, but some people learn to teach others. And some families pass down their values, whether those values are integrity or corruption. I smiled, remembering that text message from Marcus 5 years ago. The termination notice that ended my comfortable old life and began my mission to protect public safety through uncompromising standards. Marcus thought firing me would save money and eliminate a troublesome perfectionist. Instead, it cost him everything and gave me purpose I never could have imagined. The foundation you build your life on determines everything that comes after. Build it on solid principles, and it lasts forever. Build it on shortcuts and lies, and it all comes crashing down eventually. Marcus built his career on dangerous shortcuts. I built mine on solid ground and unshakable principles. Guess which foundation is still standing strong? And now his son gets to learn the same harsh lesson his father did. In construction, as in life, there's no substitute for doing things right the first time. There's no amount of money worth risking innocent lives. And there's always someone watching. Someone who remembers that construction isn't just about profit margins and quarterly reports. It's about building tomorrow, today, safely, permanently, ethically. Right. The legacy continues. The next generation of builders will know that corners can't be cut when lives hang in the balance, because somewhere out there, there's always someone like me watching, someone like Kevin Martinez holding the line, someone who remembers that our profession carries the sacred responsibility of protecting the people who will live, work, learn, and heal in the structures we create. And that's a responsibility worth everything I went through to defend. The foundation holds, the watch continues. The truth always wins in the end.